The other night, I was scrolling online before bed. A friend from college had just gotten a new promotion at their job. Another posted a picture of a new house, and they had the keys held carefully in their palm. And I felt it. That quiet, sinking feeling. The sense that everyone else was moving forward, and I was standing still. The hum of the fridge in my kitchen started to sound very loud. It's a feeling that has a few names. Some will call it milestone anxiety, a quiet pressure to hit certain marks by a certain time. Now, the name that I find the most honest is one by psychoanalyst Karen Horney. She called it the tyranny of shoals. The voice that whispers, "You should be further along by now." Now, for a while, 2 months now, I've had this small wooden box. It's in my closet. At the end of most days, I write one thing on a slip of paper. One proof that the day mattered. And I drop it inside. It's a small ritual that sort of acts as a quiet act of protest against that voice. Now, it's strange, because for the first part of our lives, the path is mostly linear. We move through school in these predictable stages measured by grades and years. We walk alongside our peers, for the most part, checking off these milestones at roughly the same time. There's a map. But after a certain point, the paths diverge. The map disappears. And our brains, which are wired for certainty, start to look for a new one. We often find that where was I? The map. We often find that we often land on one that we didn't even realize we'd inherited. In the 1960s, a social psychologist named Brian Newgarden, he came up with this term called the social clock. It's an invisible, culturally defined timeline for when we should get married, when we should build out a career, when we should have children, when we should buy a house. And this clock becomes the default measurement for the fundamental human drive. Now, social comparison theory, first proposed by Leon Festinger in 1954, suggests that our brains are hardwired to evaluate our own worth by looking at how we stack up against others. And I know you know what I'm talking about. It's not a character flaw. No, it's an automatic process. So, when the clear metrics of school are gone, we start measuring our messy internal lives against the most visible parts of other people's lives. The promotions, the new job, the relationships, the houses. We compare our progress against an inherited clock that many of us never agreed to follow in the first place. Now, the problem is that clock is running on old time. For younger generations, especially, those traditional milestones are less accessible and often less desirable than they were for our parents or even our grandparents. But the ghost of that linear expectation, it lingers, it remains. And dare I say, it fuels the tyranny of Schultz. We see these curated highlight reels and compare them to our own unedited daily footage. As researcher Brene Brown puts it, comparison is the crush of conformity on one side and competition on the other. Conformity on one side and competition on the other. It tells us to be like everyone else, but better. So, the natural response when we're falling behind is to hustle, to try and catch up. But, as you may know, this often leads to a burnout cycle. We move from pressure and not purpose and end up feeling even more stuck. It's sort of like being on a hamster wheel. You move faster and faster, but you're in the same place after all this energy and all this effort. We become paralyzed by the gap between living the life that we are living and trying to live up to the story that we thought we were supposed to live. But what if that story was wrong? What if the goal isn't to walk in a straight line? No. Life is not linear. It is not like a game of chess. It is not, you can take these pieces and make all of these calculated moves. No. It's not a sequence of carefully planned moves at all. I would go as far as to say life is a lot more like a game of Tetris. Learning to fit the unexpected pieces together as they fall. Many of the most meaningful lives and careers found their shape after years of detours and paths that looked just like dead ends. The writer and speaker Mel Robbins, who's now in her 50s, has said that she feels like everything in her life, the successes and the failures, was just preparing her for the work that she does now. I'm going to tell you something. The path only makes sense when you look backwards. You can't see the connections forming in real time. You can't. All you can do is keep moving and trust that the dots connect. Now, this is what I think about when I think about my wooden box. Each slip of paper isn't a milestone. No, it's never about. It's just a dot. A single point of light in the dark. But over time, you start to see the constellation that they form. A shape that is uniquely yours. This whole thing requires a completely different way of measuring. It's a pivot from outcome to direction. From goals to values. Instead of asking yourself questions like, how far along am I? We can ask, am I moving in a direction that feels true? It's like trading in an old, inherited scorecard for a brand new one. The old scorecard will ask things like, Did I get the promotion? Am I in a relationship? Did I buy a house? Did I have children? Am I keeping up? Now the news scorecard asks wildly different questions. Better questions. Was I kind today? Did I take care of my body? Did I learn something? Did the way that I acted today align with the values that I find to be the most important to me? Believe me, this shift isn't easy. The old voice of comparison will still nag and it will show up. Yes, it will. And the practice in those moments is not to fight it, but to meet it with self-compassion. To notice the thought. Remember that this feeling is a part of the shared human experience. And then offer yourself the same kind of kindness that you would offer to a dear friend. It's a way of deactivating the body's threat response. It's a practice of affirming in the face of the scarcity mindset that tells us that we are not enough, that we are in fact already whole. So tonight I pick up I would love to say pen, but I only have a pencil here. I've got to get a better setup in this. I pick up my pencil. The house is quiet. Day is done. It's 12 a.m. And I think about what mattered. And it wasn't a milestone, it wasn't an achievement that anybody else will see. No. Today, I had one deeply honest conversation. That's the proof. That's the piece of paper I'll put in the box. This is about finding the path back to yourself. You were not behind. You were not late. You were here. And here is where you begin. I have no idea why the colors keep shifting in the video, but the next one will be about building daily systems to help with emotional scaffolding. I don't know, I've been reading a lot of books. Stay tuned. Next one, more.